Thank you all for coming, really appreciate it, and there's a lot of you here, which is good to see. And yeah, I came up from Sydney yesterday. I don't know how many of you know my story, so I'll go over it very, very briefly, because otherwise I'll be here and you'll be here tomorrow still listening to me. Back in when I was 9 years old, I had a sighting of a UFO above me in Blacktown, Western Sydney, and I was heading home from a friend's place and looked above me, and there was this white sphere, probably about 30-40 feet above my head. And I had my skateboard on me, so I sat on my skateboard, and this thing was moving with me. So I'd stop and I'd look up and it would stop as well. So it was sort of mimicking my movements, and I was like, at first I was a bit intrigued, what could this be? And the further I went and the more it was doing it, I realized that, hey, this is something strange here, what's going on? This ain't an aeroplane, it's not a balloon, what's very bright red sphere. Sure enough, I ran the rest of the way home, between a park going between homes, and ran all up my street, never looked back again, never looked up, and that was it. It scared the hell out of me eventually, you know. So I got home and I said to my mum, look, I was really excited, and I'm like, look, I'd just seen a red ball, it was following me and it was mimicking my movements, it was doing all this stuff, and she's like, oh, it was an aeroplane, you know, straight off the bat. So that, what she told me, and me knowing at the age of 9 that it wasn't an aeroplane, what I saw, launched me into basically a career of researching this topic and looking into to discover what it was I saw, and not just that, to prove my mum wrong. Yeah, I wasn't alone. You know, there's people everywhere seeing these things. You know, also from all walks of life. You don't have to be, you know, the President of the United States to see them. I mean, even though presidents have seen them. At the age of 12, I was camping out with my stepbrothers, and we're in the backyard. The red sphere came back and just hovered, then it zip over here and stop, and then it zip this way and stop, and we watched it for about a good 3-4 minutes doing all this maneuvers across the sky, and we're trying to call the parents out from inside, but they didn't want to come out. They just were like, whatever, kids. And all of a sudden a yellow-green sphere, same sort of size, has come into, you know, the play and come into the shot, started chasing this red sphere around the sky, you know, and they were doing these intense bursts of speed and stopping without any forward inertia whatsoever. Then they'd take off in another direction, chasing this thing. About a minute of this greeny yellow sphere chasing this red sphere, a blue sphere popped into the scene. A blue orb, or what do you want to call them? Bright, very bright light. And both of them started chasing the red sphere all around the sky, very great distances, and it'd stop and there'd be a bright flash, and then this would go this way, and it was just absolutely incredible. And probably had up until 2012, about maybe 17, 16 sightings my whole life. 2012, I moved to Dunedoo, central west New South Wales, in August. Second night I was there, I went out the back, and it was about 10:30, quarter to 11 at night. It wasn't late, and all of a sudden, I'm just looked up, and something caught my attention. A massive white ball of light, just cruising so slowly over the top of this house, this rooftop, so low it was actually illuminating the tiles on the roof as it was going, you know, and it giving off this glow around it as well. And it was one of the most surreal experiences. It was, up to that point, the closest UFO I'd seen, you know. I watched it disappear behind a tree, come out the other side, then it disappeared behind a large 2-story shed. It never came out the other side, it completely disappeared. And I was like, where's it gone? Sure enough, a few seconds later, on the outskirts of Dunedoo, they have cattle auctions once a month. In the area where this disappeared, it was heading towards these cattle. The cattle started going crazy about a minute later. And you could hear it all the way over Dunedoo. They were making all sorts of roo sounds and going nuts. It was like a chorus of animals. And then dogs, cats, all sorts of animals were just, it was nuts. It was completely bonkers, you know. And you just hear that and you're like, oh, what's it doing to these animals? Like, the animals can sense these things, just like you can sense paranormal activity, ghosts, that kind of phenomena. This phenomena is very similar in a lot of ways. The Sun Herald reporters came up and they saw the UFOs fly above the house. We had presidents of UFO groups come up, see the UFOs themselves above the house, stop and hover and zigzag and do all sorts of maneuvers around the sky. My father had never seen a UFO up until I started dragging him outside to come and see them. You know, and at first he wouldn't come out, you know, because he's like, I'm just relaxing watching the footy or something. Fine, Dad, no worries. So I'd sit out there and watch, you know, this aerial display myself, and it was incredible, you know. But eventually I got him outside and he saw one stop directly above us, then blink out, blink on, blink out, and then go blink on again, and then got like that. It was almost for his benefit so he can go, oh, what was that? That wasn't nothing normal. And from then on in, Dad would come out with me every night and we'd bring a little pad and paper and sort of mark where they were heading, what they were doing, what they looked like, you know, that sort of thing, trying to document and whatnot. and we'd count them, you know, and some nights like we'd get up to 13 a night, you know, just in a few hours, come over the house and stop and do all sorts of things. And then you'd see satellites as well, and you see planes and all that. Anybody can tell the difference, you know, really. And sometimes they'd show up when the planes were going over. They'd appear right behind the plane, follow the plane, and then zip around the front of the plane as if the plane's standing still, and then disappear. You know, incredible stuff like that. Maneuvers that just boggle the mind. Absolutely incredible stuff. Now, after the Sun Herald reporters came to the town and did, you know, the stories and all that sort of stuff, saw the UFOs, I said, look, I'm not going to do the story unless you admit that what you saw. So they did. They approached Air Services Australia to get a skeptical point of view on what they could have seen, and they said it was a pair of twin satellites, or possibly a pair of twin satellites. Now, twin satellites don't follow each other and then zip up to each other and then zip away like a game of tag across the sky. Satellites don't operate like that, okay? Now, we watched this aerial spectacular across the whole sky. The reporters, one of them was a camera lady. She couldn't even grab a camera. She was that gobsmacked with what she was seeing that she was just, you know, like her mouth was open. The other reporter, Tim Barlass, his mouth was just wide open. He was gobsmacked. Now after that story came out, people from everywhere were coming from around Australia. It was absolutely bonkers, you know, and it was a beautiful thing. The people would rock up at the door without calling or anything. Hi, we've just come from Darwin, a family of 13 people. I hope you don't mind, but we just asked where you lived down at town, and they told us you lived here, and do you mind letting us in? You know, I'm like, oh, well, all right, no worries, could be a serial killer, but that's fine, come on in. And I'd have time for everybody, you know, because I feel I need to share this with people, and that's what part of what I am here to do, is to share this reality with people, because people need to wake up, realise that something's going on out there, and we need to keep this in the media. We need to keep it in the public attention, because too often with UFO stories, you hear a big case, you hear a big story, and then it disappears. You never hear anything again. And a few months later, they'll chuck on another little news piece, and people go, oh yeah, to tickle the imagination, and then it disappears again. We need the public to, you know, we want to reach a precipice where more people believe than don't believe. You know, and there's a difference between belief and knowing. You know, I don't believe they exist anymore. I know that they exist, but what they are is a different story. Now, I'm not trying to tell the public that they're aliens, that they're anything. I've gone down all routes in my life looking at what they could be. I've spent the last 26 years delving into every part of this phenomenon that I can, reading every book, speaking with every person, you know, seeing the phenomenon myself, seeing the way it works, operates, and the high strangeness part involved in it as well. That's another story. And after 2012, I moved to a place called Taree in New South Wales, a bit east of Dunedoo, and they appeared on the first day we moved there. You know, straight off the bat, they followed us in the car. We've got photos of them hovering next to the car as we're balls of light, you know, just following us. And my friend nearly crashed the car when I said that, look, they're here now, and well, I'm seeing bright flashes. That's the way I was seeing them, bright flashes at the side of the car. So I take a photo. I said, look, they're here right now. I took a photo and showed him instantly, and he veered nearly off the road. And he's like, oh my God, and he grabbed my arm, and what's this? And a lot of people do that. They tend to lose the plot around me and shake me and swear and carry on, and it's like, oh, leave me alone. Okay, so and it's continued, and it hasn't stopped, it hasn't abated. You know, you have like times where you won't see him for a month and a half, nearly 2 months. That's been the longest in 3 years that I haven't seen one for. And it was because for a while it was affecting my sleep. I was getting woken up at all hours of the night to go out and see them all hours of the night. That's the way it happened from when I was probably about 14 as well, 15. And I'd just wake up and then walk outside and then look at something and then go, oh yeah, and then just walk back to bed, and the next morning barely remember it. And sometimes I'd bring a camera out, take a photo, and I first started getting, my first bit of footage was in 2007, and that was with one of the early mobile phone camera things, so it's not the best footage, but it shows a white sphere, and I was at my friend's place having a barbecue, and all of a sudden, big white sphere comes along the treetops like this, then slows down, like it recognised that we were filming it, slows down, and then just goes, like this, gone. Like this, and that was on Today Tonight. They came up and did a story on me, and we actually saw a UFO with the Today Tonight crew, and I'm pointing it out to them. You can see it on the camera. It's over there, big white light, just cruises along the valley, stops, spins around, and then blinks out, then blinks on again. And the camera guy pans over to it, sees the light, and then pans back to me. And I'm thinking, yes, there's a UFO right there. Then it goes, it disappears. So it was, you know, stuff like that. You just think, oh my God. But most people who've come up have seen them. Not everybody, you know. And I think there's a certain open-mindedness here to this whole phenomena. There's a high correlation as well between people with psychic abilities, empathic abilities, all this kind of stuff, and the openness to them. And they use psychic abilities, they use telekinesis, that sort of stuff. Look, I've been there and done and you know, somebody told me to put thoughts across to them, and so I did. And I thought, okay, show me that you're not something just normal. And then all of a sudden it did stop, you know, and then go this way or do something else. And at one time, I saw two of them heading towards each other, two white spheres. I'm like, are they going to collide? What's going on? And then they stopped, like talking or looking at each other, got really bright. And then one went here and they zipped around each other real quick, and then they just kept on going really slowly. The way that they act, almost childlike, it's hard to explain. Sometimes they're shy, sometimes they play games in the sky, sometimes they hide in the clouds when you go to get a camera or something, and they're there for 10 minutes before that, and you're like, wow, you're going to get a camera, and then they, as soon as you start to press a button, they go and zip in really quick, and it's like, oh, you know, again, you got me, and it's like, oh, wow, you know. And I started filming them, you know, like I think the second day that I had the camera, I started filming them, and look, it hasn't stopped from there. I've upgraded all my equipment since. People expect quality, people expect the best and the best, because what they see on YouTube is a lot of fake rubbish. Most of the stuff on YouTube is just, and it does all of us a disservice, an absolute disgusting disservice. These people pay millions, get paid so much money by YouTube because they get so many hits on their sites and they advertise and all this sort of stuff. People then think that stuff's real. So when they see the real stuff that's not as pretty and not as, you know, like perfectly put together by a computer, they think, oh no, that's not a solid Star Wars looking craft, so that's rubbish, you know, and they don't look at your videos. But when they see the stuff that these things really do, I mean, it's absolutely incredible. And I started up AAPI in 2012, which is Australian Aerial Phenomena Investigations, and we have a team of a few guys dotted around, and I based it basically on Jaime Maussan in Mexico, his team of vigilantes, Del Cielo, which is, he's got all of Mexico's skywatchers that call each other up and say there's an object here, so you can get multiple angles of footage, and you can scientifically work out the height and from all that sort of stuff mathematically. So I thought that's an excellent idea. It'd be great to implement that in Australia, so I've done that. And now I'm the Australian leg of his Vigilantes crew. I think it was last year I went and came up to Queensland here, went to Bribie Island and Fig Tree Valley, and a documentary maker had approached me 2 years previously at a talk at Paracon, a paranormal convention. And he said, I'd love to make a documentary about your story. And after seeing my footage and all that sort of stuff, and you know, and hearing my story, he thought, you know, it's worthwhile. And so I thought, yeah, why not? And so I went up in December, and you know, we started filming. And sure enough, the second last night we're there, huge orange sphere appears the second we rock up at one of the sites, and it's moving probably about 45 feet above the ground, and it was no noise, silent, very slow, right in front of myself, the producer of the documentary, and the cameraman. So sure enough, cameraman's got his camera out, I've got my night vision binoculars out, normal camera, taking snapshots, photos, that sort of stuff, and so we caught it, and it went behind a tree, never came out the other side, disappeared. I've seen them do that so many times, don't know why. Something that I've done with Mel quite a few times, and it still spins me out. I don't know how I do it or how I've done it. We'll be in the car and we'll be driving around, and all of a sudden I'll be like, I can feel them around. Okay, it's an anxiety mixed with a euphoria, mixed with all these other feelings. It's very strange, almost like a knowing sometimes, you know, that they're here now. And so I'll tell Mel, look, they're going to be over the hill here in a second, they're going to be here, or they're going to be over here. I'll point in the direction, we'll get up over the hill and go down, and then a UFO cigar will be hovering there off in the distance, you know, and stuff like that. This has happened so many times now. It's incredible, and to the point where we've done it in front of so many friends that every time I do get this feeling to go out, I'll grab whoever's in the house, I'll grab neighbours, I'll grab whoever. You know, we've had posties standing out the front filming UFOs with us, and all the neighbours come over. Yeah, all the neighbours come over and stand there and, oh wow, look at that. And you know, and the real funny thing is that some people can't see the UFOs. There'll be 5 people who'll see them, and one person will be looking straight at it and won't see it. This is another part of the high strangeness of the phenomena. And You know, that's why it's so beautiful. The more you look into this, the stranger it gets. It's not just simply nuts and bolts ET craft or anything like that. There's more to it than that. This is interaction with the human species on a different level, on a psychic level, on a spiritual level. It's a beautiful thing, and there's high correlations and connections with ghost phenomena as well, paranormal phenomena and stuff like that. They both can be picked up with EMF meters. They change the Earth's magnetic field, which is meaning they give off, they block the field, you know, and they change the air around you too. You can feel it when they're around. It's just a tingle, a very strange, electrified, especially when they get close, you know, you get these really bizarre feelings, and it manifests physically. So we found out quite by accident that standalone tri-field meters don't register me, i.e. I don't block the Earth's magnetic field. They can't work out, they said I shouldn't exist. So if you walk in front of the meter, it's already set for the, you know, the surrounding. So if you walk in front, you're blocking the magnetic field, and it'll register just temporarily. You know, if you move your hand in front of it, it'll make a sound, and the needle will go up. We repeated this experiment over 50 times just in one night, and everyone else would walk in front of it or even go anywhere near this meter, and it would just go, you know, peak when it's getting blocked, right? This magnetic field is getting blocked. I'll walk in front of it, I can literally pick it up and do everything with it and play with it, and it will not make a sound. It will not do anything. So we can't work out why that is. They said to me I shouldn't exist, and I said, well, what does that mean? I have no soul, or what's going on here? You know, that's not really nice to hear. Thanks for that, you know, great. Now I'm thinking that may have something to do with the way and how and why I feel them or sense them, you know. It's a possibility. It's energy transference, and I'm picking up on it, and I know since I was young I've had psychic abilities of some type. I'm a very emotive person. I can feel people's emotions. I know when people are pissed off with me or happy with me or whatever the case may be, excuse the French, and other stuff. I walk through the shopping centres, I'll pick up on people's emotions, and some people stop and look at me, not know why, and then, you know, weird things, really strange things have happened like that. This hasn't stopped. We've up to about 140 witnesses now, and about 38 of them are willing to go public and take lie detector tests and tell everyone about, you know, back me up in court or whatever the case may be. So, but not everyone's willing to go public and say, yeah, I saw a UFO with Damo, you know, that sort of thing. Talking about it and saying, yeah, I support you, and then going public's a big difference, massive difference, you know. Look, it's affected my life no end, going public with this. You know, I've had a couple of death threats from random awesome people, and you know, I've had been hunted by reptilian hunters who think I'm a shape-shifting reptilian shapeshifter, whatever the case may be. So, you know, that's pretty nuts. But apparently they've filmed me, and so you can actually see the film on YouTube of me shape-shifting at two of my talks. So yeah, check it out. It's great, and it's just me move because I'm part Italian. I like moving my hands around a bit, and I'm really you know, and. Yeah, and so you do that when the light's out, and of course your hand's going to look a bit weird, and that's all it is, you know. It's not me shape-shifting, but I'm telling you this so you don't think I'm a shapeshifter. So yeah, thank you, good. I'm glad someone does, that's good. Okay, so, and you know, religious groups, some neighbours, you know, who don't see it and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, you get weird looks every now and then. I don't care, I've got skin like a bloody a cement duck, you know, like a reptilian. Yeah, that's it, exactly. So, you know, yeah, I'm a bit scaly. So it just walked off a reptilian's back, you know. So, and oh, thanks, cheers. Scales and all, that's good. Yeah, cool. And look, it hasn't stopped. It's been, you know, 95% positive feedback from everybody, you know, all around the world. But, you know, after Dunedoo, I had about, I think, 6 police officers contact me from all over country, you know, districts, and saying, look, we've seen these things, we've seen them at night. 2 police officers that they saw on Christmas Eve, I think it was 2011, they filmed a massive orange orb cruising about 10 feet above the road right in front of them on New Year's Eve. And then it just disappeared into the brush and disappeared completely, and that was it. And they were going to send me the footage, it just disappeared. People get really excited, okay, especially when they see these things the first time, and they're like, oh man, bright, where's what I can describe, this bright white light with a red top on it, like a matchstick, like a big, huge, long matchstick, about 6.5 feet tall, fly over my shoulder and disappear into the ground. And all this time, the EMF meter's going crazy. And lo and behold, I was filming in the valley behind us, and we're turning around looking at this meter, taking photos of it, thinking there's something around. Caught this big orb hanging right above the meter with a big brown mist around it. And behind us, the next morning when we got home, we've checked out the footage of the valley behind us. It's only a small valley, it's probably 800 meters long to the next mountain peak. And this is where activities happened for the last 15, 20 years. There was Americans, British UFO investigators there 10 years ago seeing these orbs coming into people's homes and stuff like that. And there's very sparsely located homes in Tipperary. So there's one here, and a couple k's down the road there might be another home around a mountain or something, and you know, big properties, that sort of thing. So there was people there seeing them, you know, so it was quite a special thing. And every time I've gone there, they've rocked up. Big red spheres sort of just hover above the mountain, then drop down, and then come back up again, and do all sorts of stuff, you know. And anyway, this footage of the valley behind us, and I'll show you the footage in a second. This footage shows 13 objects coming down from up high, changing direction, lights, like comets almost, and then disappearing into the valley, into the ground. While we saw one go over my shoulder and disappear into the ground as well. And that was incredible. It scared the living daylights out of me. One day, Peter Slattery and myself were up at Dunedoo, and we saw 38 crafts in 2 nights. Craft, objects, lights, all sorts of things. They were coming, showing off, coming out of nowhere, doing all sorts of maneuvers, everything. It was intensely mental. But the best one we had was a big Hollywood-style Independence Day flying saucer. Not as big as Independence Day ones, but it was large, and it had lights running right around the perimeter, like a Ferris wheel kind of thing. And anyway, the lights were just constantly streaming around, pulsing. This thing was heading right towards us, very low in the backyard. We've got the cameras set up on the tripods. We'd spent all day charging the batteries for that night to make sure everything was sweet. I had 8 spare batteries for a Sony camera, 8 batteries that were loaned to me from a friend, Mike Williams, and sure enough, one after the other went dead as this thing slowly going over. Same thing that happened to Peter's camera. Batteries were drained constantly. This thing did not want us to film it. You get your metallic spheres, metallic balls of, you know, and I've seen them change from metallic into almost a smoky texture, you know, smoky grey-brown texture. And I've witnessed white spheres change into the same thing when they move under clouds as well. Now, I thought it had actually gone because I couldn't see it anymore on the viewfinder because it went out of focus because of the power lines. But it's actually, when I pan back, you can see it just moving along slowly. I didn't see it at the time. And this object, this big orange ball, just started moving across the sky in front of us. We were at a lookout at this stage, and this is almost at eye height with us. So it was up quite high, but not high enough for an aeroplane or this or that. So it's moving across, and then it just blinks out, you know, and we're on the phone to friends saying, oh my God, we've got a UFO, we're all really excited. And then watch what it does, dunk, gone. Okay, I get a little bit excited myself too sometimes still. It's hard not to, you know. But you hear me in other videos where everyone else around me is going nuts, and I'm just like, please be quiet, you know. Sorry. Because now I'm presenting this stuff to the public, and you don't want to hear people swearing and carrying on and saying, come on down, and all this sort of stuff. But, you know, it's good because it adds realism to it as well. You know, it adds, instead of something beeped out or, you know, music over the top of it, I'd rather hear someone's voice, you know, saying whatever. But not swearing, not carrying on like that. Now, this was an interesting day. Mel had a friend of hers around, and she'd never seen a UFO or anything before, right? Now watch this thing just appear out of nowhere. This thing was disappearing, reappearing. I had a feeling, an intense feeling. I went outside, there it was, right above the house, just hanging there, reappearing, disappearing, doing all that sort of stuff. Then it got bigger, larger, and so we caught this UFO over a period of 9 minutes, just moving so slowly over our home. And it was doing all sorts of stuff. There was little balls flying around it, all sorts of, there's one. So it's a bit jerky, but sometimes you don't get the time or the chance to set up a tripod and, you know, and all that sort of stuff. Sometimes the sightings are fleeting, you know. If you leave it and go, oh, okay, I'm gonna go get better cameras and stuff, by the time you get back, usually they're gone. So you've got to film right there and then when you get the chance, or have tripods set up all the time out the back or out the front or whatever. But I see, everywhere I've gone, I've seen them, whether it be talks, you know, all over the place. Yesterday, we've got video of them following the aeroplane up here. Because I have a fear of flying, okay, which sounds weird because I'm always filming flying things. Now, the strange thing is, I decided, look, I'm going to defeat my fear, because we were going over to America, early next year to take my documentary there, and then Mexico and places like that. So I thought, I'm going to defeat my fear, and I'm going to go get on this plane. And as we're walking up the stairs, I'm thinking, I'll put it on Facebook and tell people, yeah, I'm over my fear, here I am, I'm coming here, come on world, bring it on. And then you see the lady's head in front of me walking up the stairs, and surely enough, up in the sky, a big white sphere just hovering there. That's the first photo that I've noticed. But this object was just completely and utterly bizarre. It was never holding its form. It was constantly changing its form. It was so bright. It was self-luminous. It wasn't just reflecting light from the sun. This thing it was also reflecting light, but it was also giving off light. And it was a completely bizarre object. It was very strange. This is the thing up close. A lot of people have looked at this and said that they can see an alien being and faces in it and all this sort of stuff, but humans tend to do that. We see faces in everything, clouds and you name it, pareidolia. And but just, you can see this thing was in constant flux of motion. It was almost like a plasma, and as we know, scientists know that plasma cannot be contained for a long period of time. That's why ball lightning is so short-lived and so rare, because it's very rarely seen. It's very, it'll last for 15 seconds, 20 seconds, a minute, maybe 2 maximum, depending on the power of the thunderstorm. Now, these objects here, there's no thunderstorms involved, there's no swamps around, so that they're not swamp gas. All these excuses, it's not a drone, it's not a plane, it's not a balloon. I had someone say it was a balloon that I made to fake people with or something, and like, wow, it's incredible. I wish I had that talent to make balloons like that. That's awesome. So this appeared 2 weeks after another one appeared. Very similar object. Now this one was heading, big orange ball and moving really slow. Now there's a phenomena that I've seen for a few years now, but more predominantly in the last 6 months to a year, and I'll call them the flashes. Okay, now these are bright lights because that's what they do, that's what they are. They appear near other UFOs. So if you look up in the sky and you ever see a bright flash and you think, oh strange, did I see that? They appear, that's them during the daytime. Sometimes you'll see an insect that will reflect a bit of light from the sun, but they're different types of flashing. You get a bright concentrated flash from one part of the sky, and then it'll reappear again a few seconds later, 20 seconds later it'll reappear again, all in the one spot in the sky. So it's trying to get your attention, and there's no rhyme or reason to the timing of these flashes. They're all over the place. I've counted them and I've tried to work out some sort of connection with it, but there's absolutely no connection. Now these flashes appear day and night time around other UFOs in the sky. Not every UFO do they appear around, but I call them the galactic police because it's like they come and scare other objects away. I've seen them track objects, and I'll show you a video in a second showing one of these flashes tracking an object. And I'll capture it with as many photographs and on film as much as possible. So when skeptics say, oh, it could be a problem with the camera or whatever. Okay, if it's a problem with the camera, it means it's a problem with my 4 other cameras as well. And my eyes, and the witness's eyes. We've all got problems, but you're right, mate. It doesn't work that way, sorry. I've taken on the president of the Australian Skeptics. He tried to debunk my footage on Today Tonight when they had me on that program. And all he could say was, wow, that moved fast. That was his way of debunking, my UFO. And then his other excuse was, oh, that's Arcturus. Oh no, it's another star. He couldn't even make his mind up what he was seeing in one of the... And that's all he gave me to debunk my footage. That's all I got off him. Then they offered me a challenge, $100,000 they were going to give me, the Skeptics Association, if I can prove that what I'm filming are extraterrestrial spacecraft. Now, how the hell can I prove that to myself, let alone a skeptic who doesn't believe in anything? It's... This is one of the posties. The posties. This postie always, he's a good mate now. He always stops off and has a chat if I'm around or whatever. And now this object, this was a day we call up the military, all sorts of stuff, trying to find out what this was. We called the police. The police said it was a helicopter checking out power lines. I'm like, wow, that's a great one. And also some Google as well. It was mentioned in the afternoon that it could be a Google loon balloon, right? So I've gone, okay, no worries. Called up Google. Google's like, no, it's not ours. That's not anything that we know about. Okay, no worries. I've looked at the Google Loon balloon online. Google balloon has a massive tether sticking out of the bottom with a big package on it and everything. Can you see a huge thing sticking out of the bottom of this? This thing hovered perfectly still in the sky for 45 minutes, despite the wind that you can clearly see on the branches here. 45 minutes. I've never seen a balloon do this kind of thing. It was defying the laws of physics. And the fact that it had a small red orb hanging above it in a bunch of, you know, high quality DSLR photographs that I took of it shows me that either they were interested in the Google Loon balloon, or it was something, it wasn't a Google Loon balloon, and they were both something quite strange. Now, oh, here's another bizarre one. I was in the front yard, got a feeling, and grabbed everyone. They came out, and there was an airplane going over the top, and just right next to the airplane, a bright star appeared, a bright light just in the sky, and it came right down, down, stopped, and then started moving towards the city. And this is when I caught it, when I was able to focus in on it properly, and whatever it was, but it started off like a bright star, up as high, 35,000 feet, easy, right next to this airplane, and then boom, down, low enough for me to film it. Went over the tree in the neighbour's place, and we lost it, and I ran up to the tree, couldn't see it anymore, you know, it was gone, it was out of there. But if you look at it, there seems to be little balls and stuff sort of moving out, and you'll see this in a second. See the change of shape of it? They elongate. See the two little nodules? Like little eyeballs almost. See the one sort of coming out the bottom here? Now this is another phenomena that we've been noticing a lot of lately. These lights are appearing just near these objects. Like they'll appear out of nowhere about 3 or 4 meters away from this object, the larger object, and then stuck into it and disappear. Now I've got multiple photos and videos of this phenomena occurring, and same as in Hesterland, they've got very similar things, these balls of light cruising along the ground that don't exactly look like balls, okay? They look any sort of shape, they're very strange. They're not really geometric, they're not square or anything, but they're just all over the joint. Now, they'll suck in from the air around them some sort of energy or light source, almost like a smaller plasma ball will go into them at high speeds, and then sometimes eject out from another angle. I bought a night vision monocular camera with a built-in SD and started filming these orange spheres cruising around, you know, Dunny-Doo, changing direction, doing all sorts of stuff. This is just one example that I brought along. They'd come over low. A couple of times I'd see them heading towards the backyard during the daytime, and I'd call my father and he'd come running to the back door and look out the fly screen, see it heading towards me, and then it would disappear. And Dad would go, oh, I wasn't meant to come and see that. And then he'd go back inside and I'll leave that for you. And then they wouldn't appear again. You know, I'm like, oh, thanks Dad, good on you. My fault I called him out. But so sometimes they're really shy. Don't know why they do that, why they hide in clouds and, you know, almost childlike. And this thing was huge. I think about 5 people witnessed this and we all got it on film. And it was just a massive orange ball cruising along. Huge orange ball. You know, we've got the apps that show, you know, where the space station is and where satellites are and where planes are and everything. So we check straight away, so we know that, okay, it's not this, it's not that, it's something definitely strange. And you know when you see something like that, it's kind of surreal. It's like you're in this zone. I'm sure a lot of you have seen them here, otherwise you wouldn't be here. Okay, this is one I was telling you about before. This is one of my favorite videos, okay? Only for the fact, this is when this light flew over my shoulder. Now you see that? Comes down from up high. Phew, see the speed of the thing? Okay, you could be forgiven to think that it's a comet at first glance. But when you see that it changes its direction and goes into the valley behind us without leaving a big hole in the valley, you realize it's not a comet, it's not a meteorite. These 13 of them over a 4-minute period, 13 came in. And as you see in a second, one of them appears out of nowhere and moves horizontally along the mountain, forms into a big cigar and then moves out of the screen. Absolutely incredible. This is while the magnetic field meter is going nuts. The tri-field meter was going like peaking, absolutely peaking, and it was beautiful. It was a great thing to see. Now you see in a second, okay, just those are the guys. Little slight angle direction changes. So this is just a couple of them as an example of what we're seeing. Now look to the left of the screen there. Just around here. This is a craft, an object materializing out of nowhere. This one I filmed the morning that Tonight came up. I was just sitting out the front for a second and this thing just like flew right over above the cloud. Very strange shape, very strange. I checked the apps, there was no planes, there was no anything up there. It didn't look like a plane, it was completely, it was moving way too quick to begin with, and just looked like a big white object like this. Now, this is a phenomenon I was talking about earlier with white balls of plasma being ejected from the object. Now you'll see in a second, there we go. And the speed that this thing was going was absolutely incredible. From a standing still position to building up speed, then it was out of there. It was so quick. It was impressive. That's why I lost it on the camera. You can see it going off in the distance behind the tree at great speeds. And you see it ejecting little white bits of fluff into the sky, or plasma or energy. And all the while it looked like a ball of fire. It wasn't a perfect circle, it was doing all sorts of elongation and you name it. It had a field around it. There we go. Sort of spitting it out the back as it's going. I see a hole appearing in the side of it and the white mist coming out the hole. It could possibly be, part of the whatever propels these objects. Maybe it's some sort of fuel that it's used up that it just gives off into the atmosphere, or maybe it's sucking the fuel or sucking something from the atmosphere, then dispersing it back out. That's a good possibility. And here's this black hole, very unusual. And you can see it. You can see these lights coming out, and we were driving up the road after just filming UFO in the front yard, and we were going up to the Coles to get some food for lunch, and surely enough I've seen this object heading towards us from the city, heading west, this similar looking orange object. And we've stopped, we've got out the side of the car, started, I was the only one with the camera at that stage, and started filming this thing. Now this is a beautiful, an absolutely incredible UFO, this thing. Yeah, the more that you look at it, it's just, the more unexplainable it becomes. We had someone try to say it was a weather balloon, and please show me a weather balloon that looks like this, I'd love to see it. Or possibly a weather balloon, Okay, now white spheres, I love these guys, they're awesome. The way they move, I'll take you through some photos first, okay, just give you an idea about, the way they show up, they stop, they hover, they, do all sorts of things. We have them following our car, above the car, so many times, it's not funny, and it's always when I'm going in between talks, when I'm traveling up the coast for a talk, or when I'm going down south for a talk, or the Blue Mountains, wherever, they're there. Every single time. It freaks everyone out that we're with. Because how are you doing this? How are you seeing this stuff? How do you know that they're going to be here? Why are they following you? You're a freak, Damo. I'm like, thanks, that's great to hear. But this is another incident where they tried to hide in the cloud. Obviously not very well, because they're brighter than the cloud, so they're obviously showing up. So, this guy stood there for a while, and then all of a sudden, boom, in the cloud, gone. I'll go to the window early morning, boom, it'll be hovering, then it'll just blink out. Now, it's happened many times. This one my father and I saw, just hovering above. Now we saw two very similar ones coming back from Mudgee, and I told him I can feel them around, there's going to be something ahead. And I told him, I said, lean back, Dad. And he leaned back, looked out the window, saw it, and I took a photo in front of his face because I had to lean over him to take a photo out his window. And there it was. I was lucky enough to get it. And This is my first video that I ever, it was March, oh, okay, I thought it was 2007, so 2008. And this was filmed with a 2 megapixel really dodgy camera, but the actual video shows this thing coming to a near stop and then taking off at speeds which would absolutely boggle your mind, faster than a jet. Now you can see this footage on Today Tonight. They put it up on there, and more UFOs just hanging there, white spheres. Sometimes the flasher phenomena, okay? Now you'll get a small one near a larger one. It'll flash on and off in the sky, sometimes track the large objects. Now they're very cool themselves, but some of them are different shape as well. And then you'll get 3 or 4 appear in the sky at once, and just in the same spot, so it's really, really strange. And there they are again and again. Perfect triangle just hovering in the sky, appear out of nowhere right in front of your face. And I've had them appear in front of 30 witnesses at once. They get bigger, they come closer, and then they'll just blink out sometimes, or they'll take off at high speeds, whatever the case may be. This is an interesting one, okay? This object was hanging there, and Barry Taylor was talking to me, we were talking before about these objects that seem to birth or spit out smaller white spheres. Now this is one of these objects, and this is caught with a DSLR camera, 24.1 megapixel. It's actually being compressed in this photo, so you're not seeing the original quality photo. It's being compressed because it's run through an editor to do all this sort of stuff. And but what you see is this pinkish white looking object here, and it's almost looks like it's got something white wanting to come out of it. Now you'll see in a second, right? Boom, spitting it out. Now in the background here, I haven't circled them all because I've been working this last week on this, for a whole week on this thing, and I didn't just wanted to get through it, but I've made a video where I've circled all the white spheres that have come out of it all around this object, just hovering there, and some of them are zipping around. One was a metallic sphere, just hanging there. Okay, another strange bunch of spheres just hanging in the sky. Now changing shape. You ready? It goes from 3 to 2. You see 3, next photo 2, and then you see like a mist at the back. So the thing's either been ejected, spat out, or it's just disappeared or blown up, or whatever the case may be. Now this object's smaller white spheres will come out of these larger objects. In Mexico they call them Ibanis, E-B-A-N-I-S, which basically means a vehicle to come down, release the other spheres around so they can cruise around, do whatever they want, and then go back to this bigger vehicle. Like we have aircraft carriers which release smaller vehicles onto shorelines, or whatever the case may be, or release aircraft or whatever. So these things are releasing these balls into the sky, which will then hover for a while and then take off and do all sorts of different things. Multiple balls just hanging around while the object's hovering in the same spot constantly. White spheres. A lot of my, they're all over the time. Any time of the day I get sightings. It's not like any special time. There's not like any special month where, there is actually September. I tend to get a lot of sightings, August, September, and February around my birthday. These are ones that I've caught traveling between talks. And I'll just look up and it'll be there, I'll say to Mel, there'll be one around the corner, and sure enough, this thing will appear. This is going down to another talk at Campbelltown when I was living at Taree. It was just hovering above the mountain, and then got it in a few photos, and then it just sort of disappeared. There's one from Prospect Hill looking out over the city. One that appeared above the house, and it's hovered there for a few seconds and then disappeared. Now this was in hospital a little while back, and the first time I had looked outside, in quite a while, and this thing just hovering there, and I took that as a sign, straight outside the hospital window, that wow, this photo does not do it justice. It was taken with a mobile phone camera through a window, and but what I saw with my own eyes was just incredible. This object just hovering above the water, and it was just beautiful. And it didn't take off. It didn't go into the water. It just blinked out and was gone. Almost to just say, hey, how you going, Damo? Good to see you're awake, and whatever the case may be. So this is the same object changing shape. Okay, that's photo 2 of it. Photo 1 moving through the sky. We also caught this on film. There's so many different types of UFOs, UAPs, whatever you want to call them, that are around. I rarely see two that are the same, except for the balls of light, you know. I've seen probably one definite disc in my life, like you'd see a Hollywood flying disc. And that was in the year 2000, and I was working at Homebush Stadium before the opening of the Olympic Games. And I'd stopped and I looked up, and then this thing came to a near stop. It was spinning around, the outside was spinning, it was reflecting sunlight like it was metallic, and then it just shot off to the city and it was gone. And there was an electrician near me, and I said, "Did you just see that, mate?" And he goes, "See what?" And I said, "That thing that was hovering above us and it took off." And because he was close, I thought he'd seen it. And sure, he's like, "Nah, mate, I think you've had too much sun today." And I'm like, whatever, you know, it's all cool. But these things, these orbs, okay, they're incredible. The way that they move. Now you watch this thing, comes from the bottom left corner, it's already come up and gone. Now, I'll slow it down in a second, you'll see it. Now watch the bottom left corner, you'll see it come up behind the cloud. Now this is very important. You see the maneuvers these things make. They stop with a pinprick, no forward inertia. Everything we have on this planet, like the brakes of a car, you're traveling 100 kilometers an hour and you put your brakes on, you don't come to an instant stop. Okay, you slowly slow down. Now these things, they don't. They defeat physics, basically. They're wrapped in their own little cocoon or bubble that protects them from our environment and our physics. They create their own physics, basically. They're bent and warped things to behind the cloud, there we go. Some of them travel through clouds, so you know that they're up at a great height. You're talking, I've seen ones that are, you know, 20 feet in diameter. I've seen ones that are the size of a basketball. It's sort of almost like, I've seen smaller ones too, and I've seen even larger ones, half the size of a house. So maybe they're like babies and they grow. You know, who knows, like humans or something. The velocity these things are traveling and can take off as well is just mind-boggling, absolutely mind-boggling. Now watch it stop. And then I'm going to go this way. Now I've seen them do this that many times, and you'll see some videos here showing they know where I'm filming in that part of the sky, because they'll come zipping along, then they'll come into the frame of the camera, then slow down and start doing all maneuvers. Like they know they're being filmed. This happened so many times, I don't doubt it anymore, that they know they're being filmed. I know this, okay? This guy's an interesting one. Very strange character. Now, he's come down from the top. Up here now, you watch him come down. This is when he knows he's on camera, right? Now watch what he does. He flies into this cloud. Now, this is a cirrus cloud, okay? It's up very high. Now he stopped, he hasn't come out the bottom yet. Now what he'll do, you'll see in a second, much more detail, much closer, what this guy's actually doing. And unfortunately, I put the copyright in the wrong place, but you'll see in a second what's going on. Now here he comes, into the cloud, moves out, pops out down the bottom, further down the cloud, and then sort of hovers and goes back up into the cloud. Now this is showing you a little bit more detail here. Up into the cloud. It's like, oh shit, Damo's there recording, I've got to hide, you know, that sort of thing. And he never came back out of that cloud again. Now, this is showing one of these spheres coming out. You'll see it coming out from here in a second. It gives off a flash behind it, a bright flash in the sky. Now, I've seen this before many times, right there, bright flash. If you look close enough, you'll notice it. I'll slow it down a little bit. Now, right about there, bright flash behind it, the object. And also, another white object enters the object, if you notice that. Now, right about here, flies into it. Watch the flash. Boom. Flash, you see it? Okay. Now that's telling me, boom, that's telling me that's not something mundane. That's interacting with the air around it. Follow aeroplanes, okay? Now follow contrails, and you may be lucky and see one hovering next to the contrail or going through the contrail, whatever the case may be. Now watch this guy just up here. There he is. There's not two of them, it's just the way the camera's moving. It's and the file that was used, ABCHD, does this thing sometimes. Now, one object, he's gone out of screen, right? Because I didn't see him at the time. I just had a feeling pointed up at the contrail. Now, as I'm moving down the contrail, he decides, hey, I'm up here, right? Look at him. Here he comes. I'm moving down. This is slowed, right? So I'm moving pretty quick down this contrail. Sure enough, here he comes. I'm here, Damo, and that speed was just incredible. Absolutely incredible what he's doing. I don't know anything else that can move that fast that we have anyway. And if it was a government drone or something like this, why would they be testing it above my head all the time? There he is. Now he's moving pretty quick above the clouds. Now watch this up close. Slow down. Now you can see all these changes of shape, and you'll see in a second little flashes around it like the other one. And also little balls of light. Watch this, flying into the fella. There we go. And then behind it again. This is the same sort of thing they're recording in Hesthorn Valley, but we have it over Borkham Hills. So it's we don't need to go to Hesthorn to see it. It's good. Little flash there. Here we go. Little balls coming out of it. Straight into it. In a second he will come out the other side of the this is an object I didn't see at the time. I just tend to know where to point the camera, where to zoom in at the right time, and I don't know how I do it, I just do it, and I just know how to do it. I don't know why. There's some people have called me an alien, that I'm a walk-in or something like this, and blah blah blah, and had a near-death experience, several years ago, and since then I think things have changed for me. It taught me a lot of things about human vanity and ego and all this sort of stuff, and how useless and how meaningless all that sort of stuff is, and all the little dramas we have on this earth and planet that we involve our lives in daily means nothing when you look at the big picture. When you die and come back, things change. This is Newcastle, coming back from a talk, and I said to Mel, they're around. I stuck the camera out the window. Sure enough, caught that fella. See, they come in all shapes and sizes. It's not your typical Hollywood UFOs that you see on Close Encounters of the Third Kind or Independence Day or anything like that. Look, I've had dreams of craft, and I've had dreams of being on craft and seeing aliens and all that sort of stuff, but I immerse myself into the phenomena. So no doubt, psychologically, I dream about it every now and then, surely, because it'd come into my subconscious while I'm asleep. But these dreams are so real. You can feel cold in them. You can, some dreams you remember, some are so vivid that you can never forget, and you remember them like, you can picture it in your mind even to the day you die, these kind of dreams. I've woken up after these dreams with strange marks on my legs, raised bumps with spider veins in them, and stuff, really bizarre things, and look, I've woken up one morning with what's called in the UFO field a scoop mark in my back, and this is when all this activity was happening in Taree. I didn't have a dream the night before, but I woke up with this mark, and the reason why I know, because Mel's a masseuse, and she gave me a back massage, back when we were going out, and every day sort of back massage, and one day this thing has shown up, so it's like, where did that come from overnight, and over a period of 3 months, we photographed this every day. She photographed it. It was changing shape nearly daily. 3-leaf clover shape and all this. We went to 2 skin cancer specialists. We went to a GP as well, which is not as good as a skin cancer specialist, but both the specialists and the GP said they had no idea what it was. You can stick your pinky finger into it. That's how strange it is. It's very bizarre, and it appears overnight. So this object here, white sphere, this is slowed down now. It's moving at very high speeds, and at the end speeds up and out of there. Now, they were birds and insects flying around. Now you watch this guy here. I pointed the camera up the sky for about 7 seconds and then caught him. And I've done experiments. We do experiments. We release balloons with LED lights in them and film them from multiple angles to show what certain things look like. We've done the same thing with drones up in the sky. We've tested how to hear them. The ceiling, the height of common drones and even hobby drones is about 1 kilometre, and that's for the really good ones. Okay, now you watch this thing just fly out of the cloud at high speed from behind the cloud. This is when Mariana Flynn bought she sent a group up initially before the reporters came to Dunedoo and everything. As soon as they rocked up to my house, a big orange UFO flew over the house, and the lead investigator and my father, I was in the backyard with the tripod because I knew they were coming, and I had the camera set up right over the house from the backyard. I've heard my name called from the front, so I've run through the house, left the camera out there, and they're like, UFO, and I've seen them all pointing up above the house from the front, and I've like gone out the front where they were, looked behind me, this big orange thing like this, shaped like this, moving slowly across the house, really low. And the lead investigator, he just pulled up in the car and saw it like right over his head going over our house, called my dad out. My dad's like, oh my God, and there it is. And if they hadn't called me, I would have filmed that one, and that would have been incredible on film, But by the time I ran out the back, it was gone. I couldn't see it, to grab the camera. But this one here, one of the investigators who came up had some really top-notch equipment and said, can you film one for me? I said, I can try, I'll see what I do. So I've got the infrared night vision monocular. This is during daytime, mind you. Pointed up at the sky, looked around, focused on this part right here that you see, and then boom, comes out. Within 15 seconds, I'd filmed a UFO for him. He hadn't been able to film a UFO for 15 years, and he has cameras on his house 24 hours a day with motion activated things that have never picked up anything and caught anything. And he goes through the footage daily, and so I said, I caught one. I gave it back to him. He was like, oh, what? Like he didn't believe me, obviously. To this day, he still doesn't believe that I've caught a UFO. That's people's attitudes towards this. It's like, why do you get to see this and I don't, And look, that's why you don't get to see it, because of your attitude. Why me kind of attitude, This is why I'm going around showing people everything, because so I can share it with people, so they can experience it too, so they can be open to it and then maybe see it themselves. That's what it's about. And the more people that see it, it's going to reach a precipice where more people do believe than not believe. And I want it to be open so people can talk about it on buses and not be afraid of, someone going, about aliens, that sort of stuff. And I've envisioned a future where, maybe it's taught in schools, alien whatever, extraterrestrial whatever. That'd be incredible, I'd love for families to go out, bring their kids out in the back yard at night and look up at the sky and go, instead of like sitting back and watching Justin Bieber or something, and sitting behind TV or whatever, do what the ancients used to do. Go out and look at the stars and look at the greatest show on earth that's happening right above our heads and around us, and it angers me that it's just swept aside so often, and it's an amazing thing. So I have other experiences too, okay? It's not just seeing UFOs in the sky. I have night vision cameras and stuff in my house that are motion activated, and I've caught what I could describe as some sort of hooded being, glowing white thing, standing next to me while I'm asleep, and I'm talking to it with my eyes closed. Don't know what I'm saying because there's no audio on the recording, and then all of a sudden the thing flies into the wall and it's gone. We've had other investigators come and check out, and place the camera where it was behind the door, and there's no way that this thing could have taken off without smashing into the wall. It's that little bit of space, and there was no one else in the room. Had a tripod set up behind the door, so if someone had opened the door, then it would have knocked the tripod over and I would have caught that film. And stuff like that. We have flashing balls of light appear above, while I sleep. Look, things that fly around, fly into the walls. It's like they're checking us out and going, oh, hey, there's two guys down there, they're noticing us, let's just slow down for a second and say good day. And look, it's changed my father's. He was an extreme skeptic, my dad. Bank manager all his life, 45 years, and, highly respected man in the top right area of Sydney, and he's helped a lot of people out. And for him to admit to me that, like these things are, he 100% knows that they exist now, and it's opened up the relationship with me and my father. We've become so much closer because of what happened in Dunedoo. What we shared together was just incredible, and what we saw. And now he's just an absolute believer, and it's a beautiful thing. It's changed his whole life and his whole paradigm. And imagine that happening around the world to everyone instantaneously. This is one a few days ago that I filmed, and watch his movements. Okay, you ready? Stop, 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 and then in out of the screen. These things are at great height. They almost seem alive. They do, when they do come close, you get a feeling that they're watching you, they're observing what you're doing, and they're onto you and you're onto them, sort of thing. Where is he? There he is. Now he changes angle there and heads off that way in a straight line. Okay. There he goes. Angle change. And speeds up. It slowed right down. There's the fellow there. I've seen him do this multiple times, fly off the wingtips. This was reported back in World War I, World War II, especially World War II, among the Axis and Allied pilots. Both sides thought they were secret weapons of the other side, and these things would fly harmlessly around, circles around the craft that were in the skies at that time. And, to the amazement of all the pilots that were seeing these things, thinking they were about to be destroyed, when really these things would just check them out and then take off again. This has been reported many times throughout, military conflicts, build-ups of military activity, that sort of stuff. The Russians recently came out, a Russian general actually recently came out and said that, it was in the news, that whenever they do military exercises, there's a 100% success rate of UFOs showing up. 100% success rate whenever they do large military maneuvers. Now this is one day we had an immense amount of activity, and this is in Top Ride. And every time I go to Top Ride, and from my mate's balcony, I think it's about 6 stories up, they appear. It's incredible. Now watch the changes of shape. See, you can see here, there's 3 objects here, right? Now the middle one's joined together. Watch in the next photo, separating. So there's 4 loosely, nearly joined objects there. Now again, it's changed. 3 objects, like teardrops, hovering just in the one spot, no movement, just above a cloud. Okay, now look at the shape of it now, it's changed to. This is when it started to sort of disappear a bit. Okay, the Qantas plane, all right, this is the same object. A little bit earlier, probably about half an hour earlier, thereabouts. Just hanging there, just chilling. Okay, and then you got these guys coming in from the other side. Same type of balls, I believe, forming patterns, formations across the sky, joining up again, while this object's remaining in the same spot on this cloud. And there we go, these are these objects. Now look at the form they're taking now. You've got to remember, I'm taking about 2 shots a second. So these things are constantly in a state of very quick movement, and whatever they're doing it very fast. You can almost see the link here, like a white kind of string between them almost, but it's not a string, it's a whatever it may be. There's 2 joining up and the other one separating. The other object's still there. Now it's gone from 5 objects to 3 of them joining up and 2 lead ones. Now this is something we'll see every now and then when you see a few. They're normally headed by a larger object, or they're headed by some sort of object that sort of clears a path for them, or every now and then. Look at the form they've just formed, all together, perfect square with 2 leaders out the front. Incredible stuff. Separating again. 13, that guy's still there. Cloud's about gone over him now. Now these objects are moving under this plane at a really high rate of speed. Also the plane's moving in that direction, but these objects have actually moved further than the plane, which initially started here. And the first 4 photos, the objects weren't even in the screen, so it means they were moving much quicker than the plane in the opposite direction. Here they are again, just about to, they're separating a bit, and photo 19, they're still all there doing their thing, and then back to 1. I didn't see them, otherwise I would have kept filming. Okay, same day. All right, big object heading near a plane, glowing, almost like all these series of photos are taken within about maybe a 2-hour period. So there was a lot of activity that day. Like I said, when it really rains, with this topic. And when they disappear, they disappear for a little while, and you start to think, are they coming back? These guys were there looking for something. Possibly they picked up some electromagnetic field disturbance. I'd say they have, some very high-powered equipment. They're probably zoomed in or zeroed in on the area. Either that or radar. They picked something up on radar, and sure enough, there it was, top left corner. That's the light we saw just previously. So he was right under it. If you look at the guy in the helicopter, he's looking up out the door at the light above him. I mean, that's telling you right there, somebody knows something. Someone in power with an awesome helicopter knows what's going on, you know. And it's just, like I said, the worst kept secret on this planet, because it's out there, everyone knows they exist, but no one wants to be the one who goes in front of the public and goes, yeah, look, I'm going to give my life for this thing, I'm going to make sure everyone knows about this. No one wants to be seen as a crazy person. I don't care. Really close to the wing and then flies off at high speeds. This is all happening at a very high rate of speed. You know, seeing strange planes, that there's no planes there. I've got this on video going right over the house. There's no plane attached to it. You know, possible insects, but it's hard to say. Who knows what they are? Could be earth energies, could be, you know, something bizarre, could be something benign, but that's why I call this unusual captures, okay? Because it's not something that you usually see when you take a photo, therefore unusual capture. Maybe paranormal. See, this is where I've charged mobiles in my hand when activity's at the peak. I've got it on video charging itself. That's happened several times. Strange captures, I have a feeling to take a photo and something weird will show up in the photo that I can't explain. That's happened so many times. It's just incredible. These are energy things. Now, this is weird. When I did the documentary up in Queensland, I came back, I'd brought a bunch of cameras up there with me, and when I got back I was going through all the memory cards, you know, and getting all the pictures off the cards, putting them on the computer, and I came across this one. Now this camera I use to take black and white photos alone, only for my website, like profile pictures, stuff like that, right? Arty kind of stuff. We never use it for colour, we never use it for anything, but I brought it up there just to take some arty shots of the crew while I was doing the doco. Anyway, when I got home, these pictures showed up on the camera, and we checked the properties of the photo. This photo, the camera, sorry, was about 30 kilometers away from where we were shooting on a mountain, and it was back at my hotel room. So straight away I thought, okay, is someone playing a joke here? Is the young fella on the crew, did he sneak back there and take photos? What the hell's going on? No, he didn't. Did the maid, you know, come in and go, oh, this is a cool camera, and take photos of her head? Now you look at it, when you put a black and white filter on it, you can almost see something strange, but that's not all. This thing took 2 photos and one 13-second video. Whatever this is, I can't explain it. This is the other photograph. Now, it's a black and white photo. It should not have any color in it whatsoever. Now, I've taken it to the photographic experts. They can't explain why there's color in this photo, because in the properties they can see that it's a black and white photo with the effect added. So something really bizarre happened then. Now, strange captures like that. Lights that fly around me. This is January this year. This is a day, some days I have a lot of high activity, other days, you know, nothing, like I said, but I feel stuff around me. I'll take photos and things will show up like this. I can't explain them. You know, it could be something benign, but it just looks cool. It's really strange. Weird things like this. I see things out of the corner of my eye sometimes, and as soon as I do, I'll take a photo if I'm quick enough. This was similar thing, hanging off the ceiling, had parallax, and this is when I felt major energies around. This was a couple weeks ago, and this was a few seconds later I walked past the kitchen, had a feeling to take a photo to my left. Sure enough, there's this misty thing in front of the curtains here with some weird little, who knows what that is. But again, I've sent it to 14 experts, photographic experts. They said there's definitely something there, they just don't know what it is. This is the second photo, and the object, whatever this is, has gone closer up. Third photo, it was gone completely. So stuff like this. Okay, this is an interesting one. This is in Dunedoo. I had a feeling something was around, an intense feeling I was being watched. I took one photo here, and then I panned the camera around to my left just a little bit, took a second photo. This is what showed up in the first photo, and this is what showed up in the second. Now, almost to me, it looks like an ear, like hair, the side of a face, and to me, this looks like eyes, a nose, face, chin, forehead. Now, when you join the photos together, kind of almost looks like a face. Eye, nose, jaw, ear, hair. Some people think it's some sort of elemental earth being, whatever the case may be. I really can't speculate about that. But I've had mediums tell me that I have beings around me at all times. When this is my high school communion, you see something across my face. This is like years ago, long time ago, and something here that's sort of shouting out the heads. Who knows? Bad photo, but it's a Polaroid picture, so very hard to fake. Very, you know, I've had experts look at this too and just go, yeah, that's pretty something strange. Could be a light aberration as well. Don't know. Orb tornado. Probably just dust and pollen and other little things, but I did have a strange feeling this night to take that photo, and all this stuff showed up. So who knows? You know, it's really bizarre. Latching onto my head. This isn't Dunny Do, where, you know, I set the camera up behind me, get these feelings, get into a certain emotional state, then objects that appear in the sky, objects that appear behind me that I'd catch on camera, like being tricky little things, you know, strange looking things in the sky. I mean, it's Dunny Do, it's a country town, so you expect to see some weird wildlife every now and then, but this thing is just bizarre, whatever it is. You know, someone said it looks like some spaceship out of Star Trek or something like that. These things with like an orb with an eye or something, you know, just hanging there above the clothesline. I mean, bizarre stuff. Balls of light flying over. Strange, who knows what it could be, you know, it's just very strange. Things show up in photos. Now, I was at a friend's place when I took this, and she's standing next to me. I showed her the photo straight away, this big thing here, and it seems to have the letter F. I don't know if you can see that in here. Now, her grandfather had died a few weeks earlier, and his name was Fred. So she took that as a sign that her Uncle Fred was around, you know. It is cool, give someone hope, that's great, you know. Good doggy. And then you got these fellas, he's like, hey guys, photo 2, his head's looking around at them all, and they're going under the bridge now. Now this is at night with all the lights, with the light flew into the ground over my shoulder, and this is the orb with the brown mist around it. There's a little fire we had going, you can see the white smoke coming up there, but then there's the electronic field meter right there, okay? And that was going crazy. Now, I don't know what that is, but yeah, it was just a strange photo, very strange. And this is where we caught the lights going into the ground behind us. Now, yeah, who knows? I just charged a little mini, one of those cheap GoPro cameras. I just charged it, bought it out, took 2 photos. This thing's come into the glass, no sound, no anything, bobbed up and down, then shrunk and disappeared. And nothing, no sound. This happened before when I've charged new cameras up. It's like they're like, okay, he's charged the camera, let's go and show ourselves now. And you know, I got this in about 6 different photos before it disappeared. Now here's 2 of the photos, and it's going higher there, up inside as it's just bobbing up and down. That's just unusual, you know, it should be an unusual capture. It's just pretty strange. Could be just dust, you never know. This is when I had a medium tell me I had a being standing behind me at, I was talking at Paracon, but I was watching a friend's talk at the time. I was in the back aisle, and this lady in front of me turned around and said, look, do you know you've got something behind you? And I said, oh, again. So I've taken 2 photos over my shoulder, full spectrum camera, okay? So it's being converted to see in infrared and ultraviolet. And sure enough, this thing has shown up. 2 photos too, mind you. 3rd photo, it's completely gone, and it almost seems to be forming a type of head here. It's with ears like a lion almost, you know, it's very strange. A lot of people, this is a strange phenomenon. This is a storm. It wasn't a storm, it was a cloud. Inside the cloud was a red light which would go poof, and ignite the whole cloud with a red tinge, red color. I've got this on video over a 6 or 7 minute period. When the, as the light would dim, the redness in the cloud would dim, these 3 balls of red light would then show up. So whatever was in that cloud, there was no sound, there was no thunder, no noise, no anything. It was the most bizarre thing we've ever seen. Okay, we've captured some strange things around the house. On infrared cameras, we hear strange noises, set them up at night to look up at the ceiling in certain rooms or whatever. And we're capturing these bizarre things. They're setting off the motion activation in the camera. So, don't know what that is. It's quite bizarre. It was trained near a wall and it looks like a lumpy mattress or something, you know, I can't explain that one. There's another thing that we picked up that we can't explain. This is near a church, supposed haunted church, just outside it. And we'd always capture stuff outside this church, so not sure what that's about. These yellow balls flying over with little things attached to them. Wind it up. All right, I'll show you guys one more video. Yeah. These are things that are balls of light that appear behind me, then levitate off the table and disappear. Loch Ness Monster in the sky. Strange something. More strange something. Even stranger something's going into the wall. I saw that one with the eye fly across the room and go into the wall. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. And I really appreciate you guys coming from wherever you have and sticking around for so long. And you know, I hope that you can take home something from this. So, you know, I appreciate it. So thanks for coming. Great. Good. Thank you. Okay.